Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fireside Chat. Tonight, Trump will deliver a national address regarding the Iran issue. So, what will he say? I think we actually have a pretty good idea of the content. So, even though he hasn't spoken yet, we've invited several independent media figures to weigh in. Also, 2 Chinese nationals had their U.S. citizenship revoked. What's that all about? Today, we'll introduce several independent media personalities to analyze these trending topics. Joining us online is Mr. Heng He, host of Heng He Commentary. Hello, Heng He. Hello, Fang Fei. Hello, everyone. All right, and here in the studio are some familiar faces. First, David, host of China Insider. Next is Fang Wei, host of Fang Wei Time. And Tang Jingyuan, host of Jingyuan's Top. Hello to you three. Hello, everyone. Hello, hi. Great, thank you all. Let's start with Iran. This has been a major hot topic lately. And today, in just about an hour, President Trump will give his national address. Actually, I've seen some media outlets and commentators posting on social media about the speech's content. For one, he'll reiterate why the U.S. is engaged in this war against Iran. Also, he'll surely say we've achieved our goals and even exceeded them. Additionally, many commentators suggest he might mention the war ending within 2 to 3 weeks. But most crucially, many reports say he's basically going to give NATO a piece of his mind. We've seen President Trump's recent tweets being quite blunt toward the UK, France, and NATO, calling them paper tigers and such. So we'll discuss that in a bit. First, I'd like to ask you all to share your thoughts. What do you think Trump will say shortly? And then give us your assessment on this. In your view, is this war with Iran really winding down? Will it truly end in 2 or 3 weeks with a quick deal? Or is a ground invasion still a possibility? Jingyuan, go ahead. Let Fang Wei start.
I'll go first.
Right, otherwise it's always me.
Well, I think unless there's a major shift in this war, and I'll explain what that might be in a moment. If things continue as they are, I think Trump is basically ready to wrap it up. I don't think he'll push the offensive further. While the forces he's gathered are elites, they're nowhere near enough to actually take over an entire country. Even if they take Karg Island or the Strait of Hormuz, then what? They just hold it forever? So I see it as a war that would have no end. Therefore, I think he'll withdraw, but not a messy retreat like Afghanistan. He'll hold the line and intimidate them into staying still while he pulls back. That's the situation. Unless, of course, there's a very unlikely variable. Jingyuan and I discussed this. If the Gulf states, and here's a hidden factor, the Gulf states really don't want the US to pull out, because they finally managed to beat Iran down to this point, half dead. If you withdraw now, that tiger will just recover, regrow its teeth, and sharpen its claws again. But as for them, from what I can see now, they don't really dare to do much. So I think it's just going to wrap up like this. Probably just wrap up like this. That's my take on it.
I have a small point to add, something a bit different from Brother Feng Wei. That is, I'm inclined to think that Trump might still want to fight this ground war. It's possible. Right now, I don't think he's completely, decided. Right. He hasn't ruled it out. Saying I definitely will fight or I definitely won't fight anymore, he's observing a bit now, and a major variable in his observation is what Brother Feng Wei just mentioned, which is these Gulf countries, because now at least the United Arab Emirates has already very strongly shown that the United Arab Emirates wants to be able to participate, and not only does it want to participate, it wants to participate in this ground combat. They want their ground combat role to be led by the US military, with them as an auxiliary force. Why? Because they especially value those 3 islands. Abu Musa Island and the Greater and Lesser Tumb Islands have been at the center of major controversy for 50 years. The United Arab Emirates says these islands are theirs and were forcibly occupied by Iran. For the UAE, taking back these islands now would be unprecedented and unique, and there may never be another chance like this in the future. So it brings up a question, which is what we actually discussed before, that it's easy for the United States military to take an island, but hard to hold it, right? Now, if they were to hold the islands, the casualties could be very high, the cost would be enormous, and it would leave them stuck there for a long time. But now, if it's really the case that, for example, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are willing to send troops, taking the islands can be done by the United States military, but holding the islands, let these Gulf countries do the holding. Especially the United Arab Emirates, they see this as originally our territory, so if I take it back, I'll definitely hold on to it no matter the cost. The United States military just handles the bang, bang, bang bombing, then goes in and takes the island, and then, okay, you guys hold it, we're leaving. I think this is actually a plan that I feel makes sense.
If that's the case, let me add a word. If this thing can happen like that, it's not impossible. We'll definitely have to pay a large sum of money to Trump.
Wait.
Since Trump hasn't gotten back military costs yet, if he leaves now, those costs won't be recovered.
Well, think about it. If Trump really takes back these 3 islands, the United Arab Emirates will definitely be grateful to him. Our land lost for over half a century, and now you're helping me get it back.
Pay some money.
It's a small matter.
Right.
It's not some kind of big problem. So I think Trump left himself some room. He said, although he's now clearly stated that we're ending soon, we're still staying for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And he put it out there that if your strait isn't, well, clear, then I'm going to bomb you back to the Stone Age. He actually left this window open for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can do a lot of things in that time. Look, it's only been a month since the war started. Yes. Now, Iran itself basically has no power to fight back anymore. In this situation, if you fight for another 2 to 3 weeks, I think it really can't be ruled out that he might, depending on the situation, launch this kind of ground offensive to completely, well, take Iran's military strength and including Iran's oil exports, Karg Island, and so on. After weakening it to the maximum extent, then, just like he said, you go back to the Stone Age, and even if you want to slowly rebuild, to regrow your teeth, regrow these claws, you'd probably need at least 20 or 30 years. Under these circumstances, I can leave with complete peace of mind. Then this strait will be handed over to you, my allies, for you to clean up yourselves, right? A total mess. I think this actually fits Trump's current way of thinking quite well, yes.
So one factor in Trump's decision is the progress of the negotiations, right? How far can the U.S.-Iran talks go, or will there even be progress? David, what's your take on the negotiations?
I think the chance of escalation is even higher now.
I think you're actually hoping for an escalation. You're
Hoping for an escalation? No, it's just that I feel like even though Trump himself has been, tonight he'll likely focus on what we discussed, the success of the line he drew for himself.
Wait.
But I think this might be quite different from the actual line of success. I feel there's still a gap. It's close, but not quite there. So personally, I feel that while Trump says this on the surface, he already has an exit strategy, right? 2 or 3 weeks, it'll definitely stop after that. But if within these 2 or 3 weeks he can achieve more, or because I think there are still many people, especially Americans, maybe not the majority, but some still feel he hasn't reached his true goals. For instance, the oil, he hasn't secured the oil underground. He hasn't truly achieved the military goal of dismantling Iran's military power. Or look at regime change in Iran, even though he says he's tried it a few times now.
2, 3 times?
But everyone knows deep down it's still the same Iranian regime, just with a different face. Right. So I think if he can escalate within these 2 or 3 weeks in a way that minimizes US casualties, he might actually achieve something. And if he can bring that back, it would definitely help his domestic approval rating.
Help, right. And I think he really needs to some extent, further reduce Iran's capabilities, especially its ability to threaten neighboring countries. This would also be an answer to the Gulf states. Hey, Han, what's your take?
I think in terms of the initial goals, they've basically been met. You know, the difference between taking out 95% and 99% is huge. And going from 99% to 100% is simply impossible, unless you completely change the regime. But obviously, regime change wasn't Trump's goal from the start. This is actually quite clear, though he seemed to change his tune for a while, probably due to special circumstances at the time. I don't think he really wanted to overthrow the regime. Also, there's another thing I've noticed, which is who's negotiating with him now. Of course, he said the president. He said today it wasn't the Iranian president.
Right.
Calling for a ceasefire. Before that, he said the one negotiating with him was the speaker, right? Yes, he said the speaker agreed to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And then the next day, I said, whether this can be done is an important sign of whether the Iranian regime has changed. Because they think this mosaic approach means the Revolutionary Guard actually acts independently. On the Strait side, they're responsible for the blockade. According to the original rules, they only take orders from the supreme leader, the top religious leader. If we say the speaker, the supreme religious leader, is definitely gone now, right? If the speaker accepted Trump's terms and said it's open, and it really is open, it shows their new chain of command no longer needs a supreme leader. This is actually a pretty significant sign, you know? Whether the regime has changed or not, it's likely that major changes have already occurred, meaning the civilian government's orders are being followed below. It's not fully open yet, but the pace of opening is indeed quite fast, meaning
More ships are passing through.
more ships have already passed through. So I think this is something he might not say it that way, but from my observation, this is a very important indicator. Because the reason they said the war couldn't stop was that the Revolutionary Guard wouldn't listen to the civilian government. They only listened to the Supreme Leader. If the Supreme Leader didn't give the order, they wouldn't stop and would just keep fighting. The opening of the Strait of Hormuz shows that big changes have already happened inside. Regarding other aspects, I think you can eliminate 95% of their forces. The capability is there. But getting to 99% is much harder. This difficulty is something all your previous efforts combined can't overcome. You can't bridge that last 1 to 5% in 2 or 3 weeks. It's just not possible. So I think if he wants to declare victory, he probably can now. Personally, I don't think the chance of escalation is very high, unless Iran, well, the opening of the strait actually depends on what? I think it's the mine clearing issue, which you have to solve yourselves. Iran won't help you clear mines because if they don't go down there, they might not even be able to clear them. So as long as the missiles stop attacking and passing ships are no longer targeted, that's enough. As for the future, Trump has already left a way out. He's been very clear about who should guard the strait and how, meaning even if it's not fully open, you might have to put in some effort yourselves. That might be the intent. So personally, I don't think further escalation is very likely. Now, there's actually another issue, which is the enriched uranium. But regarding enriched uranium, if they remove their missile systems, production and delivery capabilities, then just having the atomic bomb is useless. That's my personal view, because in the end, you can't get it. Getting it is just too difficult. Even if you sent in special forces, that would probably be the toughest battle the US military has faced since World War II, if they were to try and seize that enriched uranium.
Right. I think there are two issues here. One is the current state of the Strait of Hormuz. Although we've seen many ships, relatively speaking, more ships passing through lately, the latest news I saw says the Revolutionary Guard wants to charge fees. And they're starting a process where they charge based on how much oil is on your ship, at a certain rate per kilogram. You have to provide your ship's info to certain people first, and then they have to approve it. If they set up a fee system like that, it's not exactly unobstructed. If he still dares to propose such a toll system now, then I really don't know who's actually calling the shots within the Iranian regime. Another thing is the issue of ground troops or escalation. From what I've seen, there are 2 points. One is enriched uranium. This group of people is ready to go, just waiting for Trump's approval or disapproval. The other is the occupation of this island, specifically Harg Island, and I hear that group is also in position. So now it's up to Trump. Are you going to do it or not? I don't think Trump has made up his mind yet. Earlier today, or whenever it was, he said we can monitor the oil situation via satellite. It's like it's buried deep under mountains and might not even be accessible. So I don't think he's decided on this. The situation could go either way, right?
My view is, first of all, regarding the status of passage through the strait, there are actually 3 possibilities for the future. The first is the best case scenario. As Trump put it, we reach a deal.
Wait.
We trade a ceasefire for the complete and free opening of the strait, returning to the pre-war status quo. This is the most ideal scenario, but I think the probability is relatively low. The second is, as mentioned, Trump bombs them back to the Stone Age, then withdraws his troops, leaving the Europeans to send their own ships for escort. Okay, you handle it yourselves. You're the ones who need the oil, so you'll have to send warships to clean up the mess. Otherwise, your oil won't get out. This way, free navigation can be achieved, but it comes at a cost. These European or even Asian countries would have to send their own ships to escort their tankers, at least for a while, until the situation in Iran stabilizes. Once everything is settled, That's a different story. That's the second possibility. The third option, which I think is even worse, the worst actually, is because Macron has already publicly hinted that as soon as the Americans stop, as soon as the war stops, we'll immediately negotiate with Iran. He'll go and negotiate, and the result, I think, will almost certainly be a repeat of when Obama negotiated that nuclear deal with Iran. It would mean tacitly accepting Iran's control over the strait, even legitimizing and making permanent their toll system. That would be the worst case scenario. Instead of losing out, Iran would actually profit. That's how it would turn out, and it's really the worst possible outcome. I don't think we could rule out this outcome. In fact, I think it might be the most likely one, because once the US leaves, people like Macron and Starmer, their first instinct will definitely be to negotiate with Iran, and then compromise through appeasement. They'll say, okay, let's just settle this, pay some money, and avoid trouble. That's definitely their mindset.
Your view of NATO and European countries is the same as Trump's.
That's honestly how I see it now.
Look at him. I think he's very motivated to collect this money. It's just a protection racket.
Right.
Charging $2 million per ship. That Gulf sees 20 to 30,000 ships a year. Tankers and oil ships are 8,000 vessels. Cargo ships another 12,000, 22,000. 30,000 ships times 2 million is 60 billion. That's 4 times Iran's military budget. Iran could recover just by collecting that.
Those high-ranking officials in the Revolutionary Guard aren't subtle at all. They say it straight out. Why are we collecting this? This money is for our war reparations. It directly is war reparations. They want the money.
Collect that money.
Collect that money.
Right, and Europe has to swallow this bill.
In this, Israel and the Gulf states are also variables, because for Saudi Arabia, don't they have that east-west pipeline? Every day, 7 million barrels of oil go through that pipeline to the port of Yanbu on the Red Sea. That's about a third of what used to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So, I mean, at least now, whether it's Saudi, the UAE, or Israel, including Israel, which says it wants to cooperate with Saudi after the war, right? So I think their goal is to make a large portion, or most of it, able to not rely on the Strait of Hormuz. So I think this is also a variable, meaning in the worst case scenario, if things go like what Jin Yan said, then they definitely won't be able to collect that much money. But regardless, letting Iran collect money like this in international waters, where does that leave the rest of the world's dignity?
This sets a terrible precedent. Maybe next, Yemen will immediately start doing the same with the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and I'll start collecting money too. Wouldn't that just be total chaos?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is So for Trump, I think his criticism of NATO, I think it makes sense. And tonight, he's definitely going to issue some harsh criticism toward NATO. This afternoon, in an interview with the British Daily Telegraph, he once again called NATO a paper tiger, right? And then he said he's never really been a fan of NATO. And facts have proven it. When we need them, they're not there. But when they need us, for example, the war in Ukraine isn't ours, but we helped anyway. So now many people believe that after this war, the U.S. relationship with NATO will be very different. Fang Wei, what's your take?
Yes, I agree. In essence, it's already fractured. Within Trump's team, besides him, including Hegseth and Rubio, actually, Rubio really wants to preserve NATO.
Right?
But even so, I think the situation is beyond anyone's control. Trump can't formally withdraw from NATO without congressional approval, but he can use executive actions to essentially hollow out NATO.
Withdrawing troops or cutting funding. Right.
It's what you'd call not withdrawing in name, but it's as good as having withdrawn. Right.
Right. So I think this whole thing, of course, on the surface, it's Trump asking for help and them not coming. But fundamentally, I think I underestimated one thing, which is the European dislike for him. It's really strong. It's actually an ideological conflict. I used to say I made 2 predictions before. First, I said with universal tariffs, I thought they would definitely bow. And I was basically right, except for Canada, everyone else bowed. I thought a multinational fleet would also form this time, but surprisingly, it didn't. The result of it not forming is this. NATO has essentially cracked. I see NATO as fractured now, completely fractured. So I underestimated how these Western European leaders in NATO feel about Trump's push for a return to traditional American values, or Western civilization returning to its roots. They're heading in a different direction. They're moving toward a semi-socialist direction, so there's a real ideological divide between the two sides. It's manifesting here, and they really, really dislike Trump. So I think that's the fundamental reason behind all of this.